All right, welcome back. It's been a while. This is the Sensitive and Empowered series with Alissa and Matt. Whether you're watching on my YouTube channel, Inspired to be Authentic, or listening on Alyssa's podcast, the Sensitive Soulful Show.
Yep.
Yeah. We want to welcome you. So the Sensitive and Empowered is a series that we do monthly-ish, for the most part, where we talk about things that get in the way for highly sensitive people and empaths on the healing empowerment journey. So we want to empower highly sensitive people and empaths on their journey is what we're here for. So Alyssa and I often will talk about, our own struggles, the things that we're navigating as highly sensitive people, especially in business and being public in our businesses. So we're here today to unpack a topic called leaning into discomfort. So both Alyssa and we walk a very similar dharmic path around wounded healer kind of energy. So we're always leaning into discomfort. And I think both Alyssa and I have been more spiritual warriors in our paths and leaning into discomfort. So I want to just do like a little bit of kind of like a little monologue to kind of get the juices flowing for the topic. So first off, I just want to say, we are comfort-seeking creatures as human beings. Um, More even specifically, highly sensitive people tend to be and prioritize the need of comfort a lot because we have a lot of sensory sensitivities, and we need to make sure we manufacture our environment, build our environment to be one of comfort, so we're not getting overstimulated. Okay, so I find that a lot of highly sensitive people can really struggle with moving towards discomfort because it can activate all sorts of things. It can activate intense emotions. It can activate intense sensory things. So I just wanted to really highlight that this is a very important topic, I think, for highly sensitive people to talk about. And Alyssa and I are going to share some of our tips and pointers on how to navigate this. But first, I wanted to read a poem. Okay, so some of you might have heard this poem. It is called The Guest House by Rumi. So it goes, "This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival. A joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture, still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond." So this actually came up in the retreat. One of the girls that I did a workshop with at the retreat brought this up. And then this morning in a different group, somebody posted this. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. Like, I have to share this. And it goes so perfectly with our topic today. I often look at discomfort as coming from two sources. It's either a state or an emotion. So hunger, tired, these sorts of things that causes discomfort for us, right? And that the states can lead to emotion. It can lead to irritation, disappointment, agitation, desperation, whatever it might be. So it's usually when we're talking about moving towards discomfort or leaning into discomfort, we're talking about moving towards states of being or emotions that we perceive as being undesirable. Okay. Most human beings are going to have a dualistic experience of this. So the ego is going to have a relationship with discomfort, and the soul is going to have a relationship with discomfort. And from my perspective, the ego prefers, right? It's preferential, it prefers things, and it tends to move away from discomfort. It doesn't like it. It likes certainty, it likes comfort, it likes pleasure. It doesn't want to have to be with discomfort. The soul, on the other hand, endures instead of prefers. It endures. It knows that it's going towards something uncomfortable because beyond that, beyond our comfort zone, lies all the things that we desire, right? So the soul tends to move towards discomfort. because we're all human beings, and you and I, especially being Gemini, we're very dualistic. So we'll spend some of our time in mind and some of our time in soul. It creates this relationship with discomfort that, like, sometimes, I'm feeling like I want to leave my comfort zone, like when I'm inspired and I'm in this soulful energy. And then sometimes we're governed by fear, which is more ego, and we tend to hold back. We stay away from discomfort. So I really want to honor that when I'm talking about this today. I'm not saying that we need to just plump ourselves into discomfort always. I look at this as like we're finding our edge constantly, and the more that we move towards discomfort, the more our edge pushes back, the more we develop a window of tolerance for discomfort. So I kind of look at it as a contraction, right? When we move towards discomfort, we contract, and then when we breathe, we find home in a little bit of home and discomfort, we expand a little bit. And then we usually retreat back into comfort zone, and then we constrict a bit, and then we expand further. So it's this constant constriction and expansion that's happening, and that's how we learn to tolerate discomfort. So what I want to really point out is that this is a gradual baby step process that we're always embarking on, and we need to check in with ourselves and say, okay, what do I have tolerance for today? Do I have tolerance to meet discomfort, or do I not? So it's like an honoring of our system and finding out what we have capacity for. Um, so yeah, so those are some of the main points I wanted to make, and I wanted to know if there's anything that came up for you, Alyssa, in that you would want to share about your relationship with discomfort or leaning into it.
Definitely. I mean, I really love how you laid all of that out, and just talking about the ego versus soul. I
Mm,
loved how you were talking about the emotion, like all of it is just like, oh yes, there's so much to that. And I have a really, yeah, I have a really interesting relationship with discomfort. I have really found it's something I preach all the time to my community of highly sensitive people, and I know people don't always like it, but
mhm,
discomfort has been the hugest catalyst for my growth and expansion as a person. It's helped me to make meaning out of the times that have been so challenging and so tough, because I always see the most insane growth and expansion in myself on the other side of it. And so that is just something that I'm always like obsessed with leaning into. And so, you know, my relationship with it now, like as I was kind of reflecting before we recorded this, I think like I've been in such a season of stretching my capacity ever since having my daughter Blaine almost 2 years ago. Like
mm,
prior to having her, I thought like, oh, I need to have, 8 to 10 hours of sleep every single night in order to like survive. And I need to have this like long meditation in the morning and journaling. And of course that's ideal. Like I know like as a sensitive person, yes, that's great. But like, oh my goodness, my capacity has stretched beyond. And so that hasn't just been like, oh, in my, I can run off less sleep sometimes and have, less self-care time. Like, yes, that's true. But it also has then expanded my capacity in and my confidence in my life as a human being. I'm just like so much less phased by things. Like things
mm,
don't feel like that big of a deal all the time that I used to like get really worked up over, because I'm like, I can handle a lot of stuff. And so it's stretched me in amazing ways. But like when I've been in the depths of, really challenging seasons of sleep where my kids isn't like awake for hours at night, and I'm brought to my knees and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the worst thing ever. My relationship with discomfort and like the way I view it as an opportunity to expand me has really helped me through that, because I
mm.
know that like when you're in that really challenging depth of discomfort and you're like, oh my gosh, when am I ever going to get out of this? This is so horrible. Like to
Yeah.
just be able to have that little life raft of like knowing like, okay, I'm in this right now, but I'm going to be able to look back at this at some point. I don't know when, and it's going to give me perspective, and I'm going to be a different, more resilient person on the other side of it. And
Mm,
I always think about something that I had read in Dr. Elaine Aron's book, The Highly Sensitive Person, where she talks about how we as HSPs need to have a certain level of healthy stress in our lives. And so
mm,
it makes me think of what you were speaking to about like the gradual process of expanding our tolerance for discomfort, because it's like, yeah, we don't want to like throw ourselves into the fire, and that's going to, shock our nervous systems, and it's not going to be supportive for us. But like the gradual process of exposing ourselves to stressful situations, whether it's, going to a party where you don't know anybody, or whatever, just like these little moments, like when you can do that and you show yourself, oh, wait, I didn't like, I survived that. Like, wait, I'm actually okay. Okay, maybe I can do that again. It's like you also build a lot of self-confidence because you see like, oh, I can handle this. Because it's like if we're always in our comfort zone, then like the tiniest thing is going to feel like a major shock to the system. And then we're gonna have to be hermits in our house all the time. And so I always liked that she said that because I have found it to be so true. And it's
Mm.
like, and the other thing I think about too is that we'll often like feel discomfort and then we'll be like, oh, this is bad and wrong. And I need to like retreat and stop. And
Yeah.
that's where I always want people to remember like, just because you feel uncomfortable doesn't mean like you need to stop or you're doing something wrong or bad. Like, you're uncomfortable because you're doing something different. You're doing
Yeah.
something that might trigger on a past wound. You're feeling afraid, but it doesn't mean like, no, don't do it. Like, maybe you need to just get curious about it and then, know how to support yourself through it, which is obviously something we can talk about. Um, but that has been just really helpful for me as well, just to remember, just because it's uncomfortable doesn't mean like I'm doing something wrong or like it's the end of the world. Like, maybe I can get curious with this and just kind of ask myself like, okay, how is this expanding me?
Mm. Yeah, beautiful. Your story, it kind of sounded like, when before you had kids, you had a lot of expectations, you had structure, you had a story of how you had to be successful or comfortable as an HSP. And then having a child kind of brings this, bulldozer. It's like, oh, sorry, there goes your stories, there goes your expectations, there goes your structure, right? So you've had to learn to adapt. And I think like adaptation is such an important thing. And I really think HSPs bring this. Yes, we're sensitive, and the polarity to that could potentially be adaptation. We adapt quite quickly, right? Because I think a lot of us are quite intelligent, to be honest. We have depth of processing. We're able to kind of see things. So as much as things can, bother us or overstimulate us, we can look at a situation, we can scan it, we can say, that's the thing that I need to focus on so I can alleviate right? Because we have breadth and we have depth of processing. We're able to see things from a big perspective. So I think that that's kind of one of the things. And it sounds to me like you practiced that, right? You practiced adapting and maybe changing up your story around, what it means to lean into the discomfort. And I think that it's good advice, because I think a lot of people, when they're moving towards discomfort, they need to change the story that they have. Like, oh yeah, I'm uncomfortable right now. My heart's palpating. I'm sweating. I have tension in my chest because I'm in an uncomfortable either conflict, or I'm at a party and I feel antisocial, or whatever it is. Can we challenge the story of who we were, right? Even a previous moment, to kind of enter a new moment and say, okay, I can breathe into this. I can expand into this moment and allow the discomfort to, you know, I would call it like empowered surrender, right?
Mm.
Like
Mhm.
truly just surrendering to the discomfort, surrendering to um, all the things that we don't want to feel, and just saying, okay, I'm going to allow myself to be here right now. I'm not going to try and run from it or push it away or prefer a different moment outside of this one. Can that take the edge off?
Mhm.
Right? Like when we resist something, it persists. So if we're resisting discomfort, we're going to be making it more and more intolerable to be with. So yeah, you're kind of a living embodiment of that. And I bet you most people that are listening to this that are parents can really relate to how much their life has changed, and they've been pushed towards discomfort just by another being coming into their life that is a very, very unpredictable variable.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And I always laugh when I talk to people who like don't have kids yet or whatever, don't want to. And they're like, I could never do that. And I'm like, I said the same thing until I had no other choice because it's not, like, what am I going to do? Like, I have a kid now. Like, my life is going to change. And it's cool that you just step up to the circumstances you're given and you figure it out. And yeah, the resilience and self-confidence that is built is amazing. And it's funny, I think about like, so we were talking about this briefly. Like, I grew up in Minnesota in a cold environment. You're Canadian. And like, I grew up in a small town where there wasn't like a bunch of things to do. There wasn't like malls close. Like, it was just a small town. And so like, Friday nights, sometimes you're just like hanging out in somebody's shed and it's like cold and nothing fancy. And
Yeah.
then I moved to Southern California and, people here have everything at their fingertips. All the coolest restaurants, you can go shopping everywhere, the beach, the mountains, like there's everything. And I was just like I was able to enjoy all of it so much more because I had such a like ability to be in uncomfortable situations, to not have everything handed to me all of the time. And so it just made me so much more grateful, so much more resilient. Like
Mhm.
I wasn't bored so easily. And so I think about that, like, man, all of these situations that feel uncomfortable, that are, less than ideal, sometimes it's like that's just like priming you for the way you navigate the rest of your life. And yeah, so I just am obsessed with this idea of like building that resilience and how it supports us. And I think about too, and I've been talking about this a lot lately, it's just like we're given the exact circumstances we need to heal the things that we say we want to heal. So like for me, I always thought of myself as a pretty patient person for the most part. I'm pretty patient until I had a child, and now a toddler who's starting to have a lot of tantrums and big feelings and screaming out of like nowhere. Um, and so that's very uncomfortable for me. But I'm thinking, okay, if I want to be this person who knows how to return to a state of calm, who can be more patient, who can be more accepting of other people, even if it goes against what I want, like that's major. And what better way for me to learn that than to be put into the fire and dealing with a toddler screaming at me because, I wouldn't let her go on her bike or whatever. So it's like, when you think about it that way too, it's like, okay, if you want to feel more confident, then you might have to go to a party where you don't know anyone, or you know one person, and you're going to have those feelings of, oh my gosh, what if I say the wrong thing? And it's like that's might be the discomfort you need to be like, I love myself even if I say something awkward, or you know
Mhm.
what I mean, or I mess up my words. So I don't know, I find a lot of empowerment in that way of thinking too. It's like there's a purpose to the discomfort that you're
Mm.
experiencing.
Oh my God, in such a big way. I think like discomfort is very data rich. It is constantly showing us what we need to experience in order to liberate ourselves from all the things that we're either scared of, or whatever it might be, things that cause us discomfort. It's giving us data to all of our triggers, right?
Mhm.
And we can choose to turn away from them, or we can choose to listen to them and work with them and breathe into them, right? I kind of it's like an honest friend that tells you how it is, right? That's kind of like what discomfort is. And it's like sometimes you don't want to hear that, right? And I think an important aspect of leaning into discomfort is discernment of when I have capacity to do it and when I don't. Sometimes you don't want that honest friend to tell you what's real. You just want them to kind of fluff you up and connect with you. And then sometimes there's that moment for, yeah, correct me, tell me what I'm doing wrong, right? So it's like I think we got to really get good at like saying I have capacity for this or I don't, and then moving from that point. Yeah. So I love you're seeing that as well.
Yeah, I'm happy you made that point because I don't think we're always in a season of being able to push our edges. And like you said, it's important to note that because I
Mhm.
think in order for us to like expand in a sustainable way that works with us as sensitive people, it's like we have to like ease our way there. And it's like I think about it, it's like balancing the expansion with like grounding. It's like, oh, I just did something scary, so now I'm gonna make sure I like take extra time to care for myself and surround myself with friends who make me feel safe and aren't the challenging friends, because right now I
Mhm.
don't need that. So it's like
Yeah.
recognizing that balance versus blasting yourself into hard situations all the time.
Yeah, and I feel that right now because I think for a lot of my like I'm actually feeling very fatigued of discomfort because I've
Mm.
been in it for so long. Like I've been literally riding this edge for so long, and it's like it's almost to the point now where I'm just like, oh, I just want to escape. I want to hide under the covers, and I don't want to have to deal with discomfort because I'm dealing with it in so many different aspects of my life. I'm going through like a massive overhaul, like a massive transformation right now, and it's like feels like it's never ending, but it's like it's pushing me into my edge constantly, and my nervous system feels quite taxed by that. So like I'm like trying to find ways that, yeah, okay, I need to regulate my nervous system. I need to like be held. I need to, so I'm learning how to like ask for help and reach out. Like when we move into discomfort and we're doing it alone, it's 10 times scarier than if we move into discomfort and we're able to talk to somebody about it, or we have somebody holding our hand as we walk into the discomfort, right? So that's something that I'm not really good at. I tend to be very hyper independent, and I don't really know how to ask for help very often. And so this is like, I think part of why I'm going through what I'm going through is to like break down my ego, make it a bit more flexible and humble so I can like move towards support and guidance and these sorts of things that I think come naturally to some people, but some people it doesn't, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, I'm noticing that. And I wanted to ask, what are a couple things for you that bring up discomfort for you and why? I'm just curious.
Mm. Yeah, something that I was thinking about was like doing something that I'm not good at right away. So I think about this a lot, I guess, in my business because when I was working in the workforce, it came up there, but now owning my business, it's like leaning into something that I have to learn and have to be a beginner at
Mhm.
definitely brings up discomfort. And for me, that discomfort can kind of like manifest itself in procrastination. And like I'm like I don't want to feel the discomfort, so I'll procrastinate and I'll like focus on things that are easy for me versus doing the like intimidating hard thing that I don't want to do because I don't know that I'll be good at it right away. And then it's like you get frustrated. So that's somewhere that it comes up for me a lot where I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to deal with this. Um,
What
or
would you
I'll
say
go
is
and
uncomfortable about that for you?
oh, like the feeling of like not being like good at
That
it.
not being good, like what does that bring up for you on it if you were to go a little layer deeper?
Mm-hmm. Um, I know. I think it's like let's think, feel it. I kind of get this like it's like this pride, like a feeling of embarrassment, like to put out something that's imperfect. Um, it always goes back to that deeper layer of like, oh, afraid I'm gonna mess it up, be abandoned. If I like really take it deep, it almost always kind of goes back to that. It's like, oh, if I'm not good at this, then people will see through me and like judge me and like laugh at me. I definitely have this like wounding around like not wanting to be embarrassed. And so I'll like kind of put
Yeah.
that layer up and like only want to do things I'm good at because I don't want to be embarrassed
Hmm.
because being embarrassed feels shameful to me. You know what I mean? And it's like, oh,
Yeah.
you're not good enough. So that's kind of the thing for me. And it's like comparing to other people then. Oh, they're good at this. Why am I not good at this? Even if somebody's been doing something for longer, or they might just be more naturally gifted at that thing. Um, yeah, which is funny because it's something I preach to my clients all the time. I'm like, you got to do the uncomfortable thing, but like I can also empathize with why you don't want to because it feels very vulnerable to not be good at something right away.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I
mhm.
admire that. And it's like I wish more and more coaches, therapists, mentors, whatever you are, would own these things. Cause like I have so many friends that are therapists and coaches, and like we're all talking about how much we struggle, but yet we put forward to our clients that, we have it all together. And it's like, trust me, I know we don't have it all together. Like so let's just share in the humanness and the messiness that we're all terrified and we all have these young wounded parts inside of us, and we all have these father and mother energies inside of us. Like we can be all of it, you know what I mean? And
Yes.
I'm learning that it's okay to like own myself in totality, right? um I resonate with what you shared. Like that would be my number one as well, but to make it interesting and share something different, I would probably say um love, giving
Mm,
myself over to somebody, because relationships for me feel very scary. They feel very out of control. Like I don't have control. I could get hurt. I could be abandoned. Am I going to be good enough for this person?
mhm.
Will I meet their needs? Will they leave me for somebody better? Like all these things come to the surface whenever I'm in relationships, and so I tend to, for me, this is an area that I'm really working hard to heal, so I can finally find a partner and fall in love, and not be like a terrifying experience. But um, yeah, there's something really, really alive there for me around that's my edge. Like
Mhm.
dating, and then as soon as it gets to that next stage, I'm good with dating as soon as it gets to that next stage where it's like, okay, we're narrowing it in, we're not going to start seeing any other people. It's like, okay, like, the ante gets upped and you're like,
Oh,
so for me, it's, the discomfort is connected to a fear of abandonment, or a fear of being betrayed, or a
mhm.
fear of, yeah, I guess abandonment is the same as a fear of loss or losing the person that you love. So yeah, that's a real big edge for me. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I can completely understand that. I mean, it's like the most vulnerable feeling. to like let your guard down, let your walls down, let someone in, and like know that it could be heart shattering. I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
it's terrifying. I so get that.
Yeah.
Um, one other one that I thought of to share, just because I think maybe some people listening could relate, because this is something that I didn't expect to come up for me, but I get major discomfort around it, and I really working on it. Is like I'm a stay-at-home mom. I get like 2 days of work per week, and so a lot of my days are super monotonous, just being at home with Blaine, and so I noticed this like itchiness in myself to want to be on my phone and want to distract, because honestly, it can get kind of boring. And
Yeah.
the feeling and the discomfort is like, oh, no one sees me. Like I'm not doing anything important,
Yeah.
versus when you're out in the world, working and, you know, working towards your dharma. Like it's like you get all of this, like these accolades and this feedback and things like that, versus like being a mom at home can feel a little bit thankless at times.
Yeah.
But something I have to remember is like it's one of the most important things, if not the most important thing I can do to help shape another human being to like live in the world. But that brings up massive discomfort for me. And it's really this like wounding around like no one's seeing me, being alone, being forgotten. I think a lot of us as HSPs, it's like that loneliness um, wound is really strong. And so that comes up for me a lot. And so I don't know, something that like helps me work through the things that bring up discomfort for me is like remembering what my ultimate goal is and what I want, like the person I want to be. So it's like when I think about who I want to be, it's like I want to be an attentive mom who's like in tune with her children, and like Blaine can look back at her childhood and be like, oh my gosh, my mom was there for me and she's like my best friend, whatever. Um, so it's like, okay, if that's my ultimate goal, then like part of this is like, I think I have to transcend my need to always be seen to relate that to my value, if that makes sense. Like I'm still valuable and worthy, even in the days when I'm sitting in the living room with my kid and, no one else in the world sees me. So it's like the ultimate healing, but it's massively uncomfortable, like so insane. So I just had to share that because I felt like maybe people listening could relate to that too.
Yeah, I can relate. And I think that comes with being a creator, being public. I can't remember. I took this, I worked with this coach forever, and I can't remember the name of the things that I did. It was like a test that you do. If it comes to me, I'll speak it. But one of my highest needs was significance. I'm here in this life to create. I'm a visionary. I'm here to bring changes to the world. And part of why I do it is because I want to be seen as significant. I want people to see that my contribution to the world is significant. Um, and I can relate to that because it's like when I'm not contributing, when I'm not putting myself forward, right? Am I getting that need met? So it can create discomfort for me. And maybe this is connected into like if I fail in front of people, or I don't do things perfectly, or I'm a beginner at something, how am I going to get that need met? It's going to, it kind of annihilates me when I feel like I'm not good at something. So yeah, totally relate. Um, there was something, oh, for me, I would say another one would be groups. So I tend to be like more of a one-on-one kind of guy, and I'm really noticing that for me there's this fear of rejection that comes up, or a fear of not belonging, because growing up being gay, being a sensitive guy, like I didn't really connect with the guys. I was always like moving towards connecting with women who are more like emotional and empathic in nature and sensitive and these sorts of things. It was more safe to be with them. So I have a lot of injury around belonging and feeling rejected. And I notice for me, like when I'm in these situations, in group situations, I'm very hyper sensitive or hyper aware of people not liking me, or people giving other people more attention than they give me. A good example would be like, if you're in a group and somebody's talking and they're always looking at this one person and they're not looking at you. Like I'll notice these things. I'm like, oh, this person doesn't like me, or are they uncomfortable around me, or whatever it might be. And that's like an edge for me too, because like it brings up feelings of like, oh, well, maybe inadequacy, or if people don't like me, what's wrong with me? So it can kind of target that like younger part inside of me that didn't feel like he belonged when he was younger. and I'm still working on integrating that part of me, right? So, but I'm really wanting to lean into this one. This is probably my biggest edge that I'm leaning into right now, which is creating discomfort, is around putting myself out in groups. Did this retreat, and there was 25 other people, and there was lots of opportunities for feeling rejection and feeling like you don't belong, and but also lots of opportunities for feeling like I belong, and love and connection and support, and all these things. So community can scare the
Mhm.
shit out of me, but it can also be one of the most beautiful things. So it's
Mhm.
yeah, my ego I think is scared of community, but my soul is like, ooh, this is so yummy, I want more of this, you know.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I like feel that one so much. I literally feel the exact same way in groups. I'm like, did I talk enough? Should I have said something else? Like, why are people like, do they think I'm weird because I'm not saying it? It's all
Yeah,
of that. And
yeah,
it's like so interesting to notice your mind going and be like, wow. And I can always like almost always see where it stems from. I so many instances in like elementary school and middle school where I felt like weird and awkward and whatever. It's like, oh, that's like that little Alyssa that's still feeling this way. And then, and then the significance piece, I think can play a big part because I feel that, and it's like I want to be the most liked in the group. I want people to
yeah.
think I'm the cool one. So it's like it's very complicated.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. God, it still baffles me how similar we are. It's
I
crazy.
know.
Okay, well let's leave the audience with some things that they can do to deal with. Like how can we be with discomfort? What are some tips that you would suggest that have helped you be with discomfort?
So definitely like that reframe that I've shared is one of the biggest things that I lean into is really like looking at the discomfort, the uncomfortable situation and really recognizing like how is this expanding me? Because like we've said, I think it's almost always hitting on an area where we have opportunity to grow. So
Yeah,
that can help alleviate some of the suffering because it doesn't feel so needless. And we don't have to stay in suffering, but rather it's just like, ooh, okay, this is coming up because it's exactly what I need to expand. So just like that shift is huge for me.
yeah.
Um, and of course, like I know I'll probably say, but it's just like having ways to regulate my system through the discomfort is huge. So it's like I notice such a difference on the days when I don't meditate or I don't move my body, just like doing yoga. Like I will notice that I feel more triggered and can go more into a dark place of being like, why me? This is so hard. This is so unfair. So it's like intentionally choosing how I'm going to view this situation and then having regular practices to kind of like ground and calm my body. I guess I kind of think of that as like we were saying, like as we expand, we also have to like create that safety within so we can like slowly get there.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, I like that. Those are all great. Um, yeah, I would say for me, there's a, one of the biggest things for me is there's a principle, the very first principle in authentic relating is called welcome everything. So it's about practicing allowance or radical permission to be where you're at. So can we own that discomfort is uncomfortable? And can we be with that, right? As opposed to turning away from it. So when we're not welcoming everything, we're turning away, we're running, we're distracting, we're avoiding, right? So I'll turn towards my discomfort and I will, first of all, I'll kind of like own it. I'll be like, I'm uncomfortable right now, right? A lot of us can maybe pretend like we're not, or we'll practice like fake courage, like, oh, I'm not
Mhm.
scared, but really inside we're terrified. So it's like, can I reveal this experience? Well, first of all, own the experience and then reveal it to myself. And then once I've revealed it to myself, I'll reveal it to the people around me. So a good example of this is when I do public speaking. I get terrified of public speaking. So the first thing I'll say is I'll own my experience and reveal it. And I'll say, I'm terrified of public speaking. I'm scared that my mouth is going to go dry. I'm scared that I'm going to forget what I'm talking about in the middle of my sentence. And I'll just reveal all of my anxieties and my discomforts. And it takes the edge off for me and it allows me to settle into myself. Um, so that would be like my first suggestion. And then um, I'm learning that we can't do this alone.
Mhm.
Truly, we can't do anything alone. We need each other. So if I'm going to do something edgy, I'm going to call a friend and say, hey, do you want to come and help me through this? Or if it's not something someone can come and help you through, can you be waiting on the phone for me as soon as I'm done so I can talk to you, in case I go into a shame spiral or whatever it might
Mhm.
be, right? Like just having a friend there that you can connect with, I think is really important. So these would be like more like relational to self, like how can I move towards discomfort in relation to self? And I think it's important to also acknowledge like how can we move towards discomfort in relationship with other? So like if, for example, you and I, we have a conflict, how can I move towards my edges and be in discomfort within conflict with somebody? And I think that, well, the first thing I'll say is that we are much better at tolerating discomfort in others when we've learned to tolerate it within ourselves. So I think we need to start with ourselves and work within, finding our own edges within our own discomfort. And then once we do that, it gives us a greater capacity to be able to work with discomfort in others. And and then what I would probably say is like within conflict or within discomfort with another person, like slow it down, breathe together. That's the most important thing we can do because oftentimes in conflict, like we're heated and we're wanting to move fast. We're not even listening to the other person. We're thinking about what we're going to say next. So it's like, okay, can we pause and can we be in this uncomfortable moment together? And I find that I'll always say too, like if let's say it's not conflict, but somebody's needing me to support them, right? And I think oftentimes when we see someone in discomfort, our inclination, more specifically when we're in our masculine energy, is to like fix or correct or like I want to take away your discomfort. And I think what I'm learning from spending 2 years in significant discomfort, I'm learning that all I really want is somebody to hold me, somebody to say, I'm here with you. Nothing needs to change in this moment. Let's
Mhm.
just be together in your depression or in your shame or whatever. Because I find when I'm in these states and somebody tries to change me or fix me or make me feel better, it's telling me that there's something wrong, that it's not okay for me to be in this place that I find myself in currently. So, I always say to somebody that I'm sitting with, I welcome your discomfort. I welcome your fear. I welcome your shame. I welcome your depression. It's welcome here in my presence. And I find that's like one of the most nourishing things that we can say to somebody in pain, is just kind of putting that blanket of allowance on them and saying it's okay for you to be you in this moment.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, I love all of that. Yeah, and it's like the through line I'm seeing, it's just like holding space and not making any of it wrong and just naming it and sharing it, and that can eliminate so much of that shame around it. Because you're right, like when we go right into fixing it and being like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I feel this way, I need to make it go away, or we have somebody else try to fix it for us, like you said, it's like it makes us feel like we're wrong for this experience, when rather it's like welcoming it, surrendering to it, like seeing what there is for us to learn from it, letting it just be is so much more powerful. And it, otherwise we're just kind of like fighting against it. And I feel like prolonging the process and creating more suffering rather than just like holding space for it and letting it be there, and
Yeah.
letting it have a seat at the table, because there's wisdom for us in it. It's not for nothing. So I
Yeah.
think that's so important. Just all of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's a great way to put it, is holding space. That's really what we're doing when we're holding space, is we're giving somebody permission to be as they are in our presence, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the holding. We're the container, right? We're not the fixer. We're the container. We're holding. So yeah, I think it's one of the best gifts that we can give each other, truly. When
Yeah.
we're moving through an uncomfortable time in our lives, it's just, having that friend that can just be there and let you be you. It's like, it's
The
a beautiful
best.
gift. Yeah.
Yeah, especially for sensitive people who have often felt like the way they are and the way they feel is wrong, like to be able to just feel accepted and validated in your experience, even if somebody else doesn't like personally understand it, is healing within itself, because it's telling you, hey, you're okay as you are. Okay, I love you as you are. I'm not going to leave you. You can feel how you feel, and I'm here for you in whatever way you need. Like that's amazing. Like
Yeah.
that in itself is healing.
I agree. Yeah. And it's one of the anecdotes to shame, in my opinion, is like somebody saying you're not wrong. Right. And when we try and
Hmm.
fix somebody, they feel wrong and it perpetuates shame. So I think when we say, here's my open arms, just come as you are, that's how we heal shame, in my opinion. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. What a beautiful conversation. Thank you for sharing all your insights and your stories and being vulnerable. I really do appreciate this 45 minutes that we get to connect. It's nice.
Yeah, thank you. You too. I know. I literally always look forward to these conversations. I'm like, oh, I feel like we're just chatting, but a bunch of other people get to listen too, which
Yeah.
is cool.
Yeah, it is cool. It is cool. Amazing. Any closing comments? Anything you want to share?
Um, I think just, I kind of just wrapping up what we said, which is that, if you feel uncomfortable, you're facing some discomfort, don't immediately assume that it's because something's wrong or you're doing something bad, and try to just get curious about what it might be there to teach you.
Yeah. 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 I like that. Yeah, if you're listening or watching, sorry, on YouTube, feel free to leave some comments below of what maybe you're navigating in your life, what causes discomfort for you, and how are you moving through that discomfort. Share with the community. I think it's important. And if you're listening on Alyssa's podcast, give her a 5-star rating. If you enjoyed what we talked about today, give her a 5-star rating and even a review on Apple, because that definitely gets her podcast into the ears of the people that need it. So. Yeah.
Yay.
Much love, everybody. Until next time.
Bye.
Ciao.